Here are the facts about Fred VanVleet. Last night, he probably had the worst game of his career, scoring only a single point, shooting 0-11 from the field, and 0-8 from behind the three-point line. In addition to all that, he got absolutely cooked by Tyrese Maxey possession after possession. Tyrese Maxey ended up going for 44 points, and it leaves an even worse taste in your mouth because that happened to us during the playoffs this most recent season. In addition to this, there's been a lot of criticism thrown Fred VanVleet's way that has been amplified following this horrific performance against Philadelphia about his overall game coming into the start of this season. He's scoring 7 less points per night at just 13 a game, which is down from 20.7 a game last year, and is shooting 5% worse from the field. While I don't want to downplay how bad Fred VanVleet was in this most recent outing, and I get why some Raptors fans are frustrated with, especially just looking at the numbers, how Fred VanVleet has been playing this season, but I just want to get it off my chest. We have a day to digest all this stuff. I couldn't get the immediate live reaction out last night, but the criticism about Fred VanVleet after this one game has gone way too far. I personally love the brand of basketball that he's been playing, with the exception of last night's game throughout the start of this season. Yes, he's scoring less points, but he's looking to facilitate more. While his assists only increased by 1, he's out there making way smarter passes, and he's halved his turnovers per game. So he's out there facilitating for people without, increasing the number of turnovers he has, giving more opportunities to guys like OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. Scotty Barnes is a guy that I think needs more touches, but we'll talk about Nick Nurse criticism later in this video. But Fred VanVleet, I thought, has been doing the right thing, and the numbers are going to be used out of context following this horrific performance and by people with agendas that just straight up hate Fred VanVleet. And yes, he was more of a heavy dose of lots of ball handling, over-dribbled the air out of the basketball at times last year. He's undersized and looked bad in last year's playoffs, which I mostly chalked up to injuries, but maybe tonight after the Sixers we can have a different discussion. But Fred VanVleet was an all-star point guard for last season. I think he's been better this season, with the exception of this most recent game. I just want to start with that, the truth about Fred VanVleet starting off this podcast, because I feel like the hate has gotten out of control. Now, more so centered around the game, Maxey did absolutely cook him that entire night. Fred did look lethargic. He looked a little bit gassed out there, and so that has led some theories going around, which I'll discuss at the end of the video. But needless to say, Tyrese Maxey has the Raptors number. He did in the playoffs this most recent playoff outing, 44 points last night, and had 31 even in that bad, brutal loss they took to the hand of us on Wednesday. So a part of that's definitely given to Fred VanVleet. Part of that's also given to Gary Trent Jr., who struggled to stay in front of the guy. So our entire backcourt, whether it was Fred, Gary Trent Jr., those two guys got most of the minutes, but Flynn, whoever was switched onto him, got absolutely cooked by Tyrese Maxey. And then the three-point shooting just ended up coming down, because I thought the Raptors contested the threes not absolutely horrifically last night, but once you let a guy get their confidence going, get a bunch of layups, the guy that, scores and bursts like Tyrese Maxey, they're just going to go absolutely on fire, especially when you have like a mental sort of hype up when you're playing a team you scored a lot against this team in the past. So that's just how it went with Tyrese Maxey last night. Fred VanVleet certainly deserves a lot of criticism for that performance, but when judging players, I like to look at patterns rather than just an individual night. Obviously, you can critique the individual night, but when critiquing the player themselves, I thought Fred VanVleet, from the sample size of the first 6 games of this year, has been great for the Raptors. But, if this continues to be a pattern in regards to Fred VanVleet being cooked by the other team's guards, which really only seems to happen against Tyrese Maxey, and he got burnt by Harden last night as well, right? Fred's been traditionally a really good on-ball stopper and gets a lot of steals himself. So until this becomes a pattern, I'm not going to be stressed about Fred VanVleet. Yes, he has up and down shooting nights. It's how it goes. Kyle Lowry scored 0 points in a playoff game once, and we end up winning the championship that season, right? That's just how it goes, especially with smaller guards. But wait for this to be a pattern before we're out here saying, we got to trade Fred VanVleet. What are we doing? He's a scrub, all that sort of nonsense. So that's my take on that front. But another guy receiving criticism following that brutal outing last night has been Nick Nurse. Will he use Banton, Flynn, or Dowtin at any point coming in the future? Because Fred VanVleet last night once again, played 35 minutes, and at the end of this one, it was garbage time. So they kept Fred VanVleet out for the most of this one, with exception of garbage time. So what's really are we actually gonna play Malachi, Delano Banton, or even a Jeff Dowtin some decent rotation minutes? Like, I get that they haven't just set the world on fire by any means in the ample opportunity that in the short, limited amounts of ample opportunity that they've had, but it's really tough, especially as a guard that's supposed to get everyone going, supposed to have the ball in their hands a bunch, to come out in short stints and really ball out. Malachi Flynn even did that in his first outing where he knocked down a couple threes, but, didn't look too hot there. And people are saying, Nick Nurse, man, you got to give some people opportunities. You got to at least get Fred VanVleet off the court. Last season averaged 37.9 minutes per game, which absolutely ran the tires off him by the end of the season. Looked like a shell of himself in the playoffs. Looked like a shell of himself in the last 10 games of the year. And then the wheels fell off. He ended up getting injured, and game 4 didn't play a single another game in the rest of that series. So we need Fred VanVleet's minutes down because they are up at this point already. And that's including this 35-minute outing last night where we had garbage time. Fred VanVleet is averaging 38 minutes per game this season. He led the league, him and Pascal Siakam, when you take into account players that played more than 5 games, right? Fred VanVleet, this can't happen again. And Nick Nurse, is he going to give opportunity to Delano Banton, to Malachi Flynn? We saw Delano get some run at the start of the season, but then the second half, CB pulled because he just didn't perform up to expectations. And I get it. I'm cool with letting Delano sit, at least for a little while, let him develop and stuff. But we got to give Malachi Flynn an opportunity. Now, one reason I think he's definitely not playing is because just on the defensive end, even last night, this guy is being matchup hunt. If you're a fan of Chris Smoove back in 2014, I don't know what he's at now, but in those 2K matchups, the whoever offense, feels like teams just go whoever offense onto Malachi Flynn. Harden cooked him a bit last night, and for a guy that won Defensive Player of the Year in his college season in his division, I'm not familiar with how the divisions are set up in NCAA, but he's a guy that, with his lack of size, just struggles to stay in front of guys as well. The defense is definitely going to have to be picked up for Malachi Flynn to stay on the court, especially where we have the defensive philosophy being extremely switchable and all that sort of stuff. But Nick Nurse, you got to give him some run. You got to give him some run, not at 3 minutes left in the second quarter. Let's figure something out, right? Let him be in the rotation for 3 or 4 games, the same way you'd let Delano Banton be in the rotation, right? Sit Delano, let Malachi Flynn get some opportunity, and if he's worse than Delano Banton, right, kick it back, and then give Jeff Dowtin an opportunity, guys. I know he's a two-way player, but this guy looked sick in preseason, and, that floater it's silky, right? Those shots that are going up. His midi looked nice. He was a great passer, great facilitator. He's not young by any means. He's an experienced, short-term player in the NBA. Jeff Dowtin, I think, deserves an opportunity at some point. Following, Malachi Flynn, Delano should be higher in the pecking order, but if things aren't working out, give Dowtin some run. But we need to be able to take the minutes off of Fred VanVleet somehow, especially in nights like this where he is not looking into it. So Nick Nurse, there's criticism there on that front. What are you doing running our guys to the ground, not getting this going? And just as a player, everyone knows it's tough to get 4 or 5 minutes in there. Thaddeus Young got a little bit of run there last night. Finally in this, we got a Bo Cruz sighting at the end of this one. Finally got an animation done up for the Cruz missile. Juancho Hernan Gomez obviously got some run late in the fourth quarter, but it's a tough look. It's a tough look there for the Raptors. Nick Nurse, we got to sort of figure some stuff out. I've seen some criticism pop up. I discussed in a most recent video on people going at Nick Nurse's head. I get it on this front, running our starters to the ground, but we need to win these games. But do it so you're setting up the players that are coming in to succeed, right? Giving them 3 and 4 minutes just kind of sporadically, it's not going to work. It's just, no matter how good the guy is, unless they're an absolute superstar, a stud, it's just tough to go in there for 3 and 4 minute stretches, especially as a guard that's got to get their game, ease into the game. It's a tough look. So I will agree with that criticism of Nick Nurse, but I think I see what he's saying. I'm not going to go out there bashing him and stuff, but we do have a couple of major problems that we still have to deal with. And firstly, it's the Raptors still go through these cold spell droughts. Now, when you have Tyrese Maxey going out there and cooking people on the other end, I get why these runs are happening and stuff. And I think Siakam, and in the most recent couple of games, especially when everyone started dogging on OG Anunoby, I think he's improved his ability to score, being more of a 3-and-D guy and picking his spots a little bit better. But Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, they've been getting us some easier offense, but especially when the bench is in, and especially when we are not drumming up the anti-propaganda in a game like this, right? It's a lot of that has to do with the bench. And I made a whole video, or I talked about it as the main point of a reaction video against our loss to the Miami Heat. But our bench is out here looking brutal. Brutal some nights. It's nice to have Chris Boucher back with 22 minutes in this one, but 8 points. But Precious Achiuwa, 0 points himself, in 15 minutes, really just looked outclassed. And that's surprising because Joel Embiid was out in this game. 3 rebounds, just... As said, I mentioned it to Josh on a recent vid. Precious Achiuwa is either your third best player or he's a guy that looks like he just shouldn't be getting minutes on your team. That's where we're sort of at with Precious Achiuwa. The second half of last year became a little bit more consistent, but we can't have these sporadic games. Our bench can't rely on the performance of Precious Achiuwa just because he's not a reliable guy night in, night out. Even though he's always playing solid defense and all that sort of stuff, last night, similar stuff, looking out of control, all that, didn't have any impact on the game whatsoever. So while Chris Boucher is one of those stable presences we have off that bench, Thaddeus Young is a guy that how many minutes did he get in this one? 5 minutes, right? What do you expect there from Thaddeus Young? I thought he hustled on defense, did his thing out there, but not a lot of run there for old Thad. Right? We need just give someone else a proper. Let them run through their mistakes. Give them a proper chunk of the rotation for a couple of games. See what they can do. I think it should be Flynn at this point just to see what occurs. And if he doesn't take advantage of that opportunity in the next 3-4 games, right, sub him out. But we need another stable presence. Otto Porter Jr. being out is going to suck, but we need to have a next man up mentality. Injuries, health and safety protocols, they're all going to happen this year. And Nick Nurse needs to let a player know you're going to get this run. You're going to get 8 minutes in the first half, 8 minutes in the second, or 6 minutes in the second half. 14 minutes there for a guy so they know what to expect going into the game, and let them see what they can do. But this strategy of just throwing things at a wall, seeing what sticks, I don't know if it's the game plan. Even if they're playing trash, let them play through their mistakes. It's a tough look out there for the bench in this. That's those scoring droughts are definitely legit. And guarding 3-point shots, I know Maxey hit some tough ones in this game, but we kind of let a lot of dribble penetration occur, and I know we're running weird defensive schemes, but sometimes when the defensive breakdowns happen, we just give up a bunch of 3-point shots. And Sixers tonight, they absolutely cooked from behind the arc, shot 42%. That's something that does need to be patched up, and that was even a problem when we won an NBA championship. But now without a Kawhi Leonard, without even that year after, we lost Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, that year in the bubble, we don't have as much reliable talent, much defensive talent as we did back then, right? That could be debated, though. We have more longer, wiry guys, but I give a lot of credit to Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol as the back ends of our defense. But yeah, we need to figure out the 3-point, guarding the 3-point shots and getting consistent run from our bench. But I addressed some of it already in this video. I addressed some of the topics, but we did have some positives. We did have some positives this loss to the Sixers. Pascal Siakam once again looks amazing. He's leading our team in points, rebounds, and assists. And in this recent outing, Pascal ended up having 26 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and is playing like a playmaker. 9 of 15 from the field, knocked down a 3 in this one. Looked like a top 5 guy for our squad. And OG Anunoby, 19 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. That's some positives. That's some positives out there for the Raptors in this game. You love seeing OG Anunoby be picking his spots well, looking confident on those drives, and made some nice finishes in this one. So all credit to those two guys. I won't rave about them too much, but one guy I also want to give some praise to in his opportunity is Scotty Barnes, who only took 7 shots last night. And this is also we'll dive into a little bit of criticism to Nick Nurse at this point, but himself with 7 shots, got 13 points, 6 rebounds, only 1 assist, 1 steal, but the jumper looks nice from Scotty Barnes. That is one major positive, because the jumper's the question mark about Scotty Barnes' ceiling. Will he be able to knock down shots consistently? I thought in this outing, knocked down the shot well. But while that's a praise, while that's a positive for this team, you know, we gotta throw some shade there at old Nick Nurse. Gotta throw some shade at I got these images picked up. I don't know when I'm throwing them in, but Scottie Barnes needs the ball in his hands a little bit more, especially where Fred VanVleet's taken less shots this season. Some of those touches have got to go to Scottie Barnes. I know we want to get the ball in Pascal. It's going to be our number one option. On nights like this where OG Anunoby's playing well, give him more touches and all that sort of stuff. But 7 shots for Scottie Barnes, and most of them being jump shots, that's not effectively utilizing our young and up-and-coming star. I don't have the same expectations for Scottie Barnes this season as some other people do, but we know he's an elite finisher at the rim. He has amazing ball control. The way he can go, sort of get around defenders, finish in the lane and stuff. He's a great passer. Let's run more of the offense through Scottie, guys. Like, let's not just turn him into a 3-and-D guy. Like, obviously, we want that jump shot to come around, but Scottie Barnes needs more touches and needs more opportunity to create. So then you can have Fred VanVleet as more of a spot-up shooter, take even more of a load off him, and you know, big topic of discussion at the start of the season. If you're not going to play Flynn, if you're not going to play Banton, if you're not going to play Jeff Dowtin, let Scottie Barnes run the point with the rest of that group. Let's not, you know, Gary Trent Jr. is a certified bucket getter. He's not a certified set up plays for other people. Pascal Siakam has looked like a point forward this season, so he can run a bit of the point guard spots, but, you know, I feel like Scottie Barnes is built for that role. So I'd like to see more things happen on that front, but you know, that's sort of my main positive takeaways from this game. And the final thing we're discussing, some memes, some theories going around about this Raptors loss, some conspiracy theories. Feels like we're in a time of conspiracy theories going on, lots of stuff being thrown around by NBA players, Kanye and all that sort of stuff, but they're cooking on the Raptors end as well. Now, a couple of them are saying that Fred VanVleet was sick, injured, and you know, they expect a press release to be dropped just by how he looked out there on the court. I can't speak to any of that. That's not one of the bigger theories that are going on, but this one's the more memes because we heard the news that Doc Rivers was on the hot seat, right? He was on the hot seat. Things weren't looking good down there in Philadelphia for old Coach Rivers, and Sixers fans want this guy gone. They want him out of there. He wasn't playing Thibault. He wasn't doing all this, and following the loss of the Raptors, a lot was talked about that, and a brutal loss there from the Raptors last night would have ensured, in some people's minds, Doc would have been fired. So maybe Nick Nurse, Fred VanVleet, they had a little meeting before the game, say, hey, if we throw this game and we have a massive win for the Sixers with Joel Embiid out of the lineup, that gives Doc Rivers at least 3 more weeks of games. We can make the Sixers implode even more. Let's see what happens. So I don't think there's any validity to that at all. But I just wanted to throw the idea out there. Give some reasoning as to Fred VanVleet being there. I don't know. I'm just memeing out here on the pods. Didn't break into a lot of segments in this video. I just wanted to give my takes on this Raptors game. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Check the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter. I appreciate everyone that's been subscribing. The channel means the world to me. But you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.